I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am, sitting in front of my screen, typing out a story that's felt surreal since it started unfolding. My name is Jake, and I'm about to share my experience of discovering that my wife, Lisa, was cheating on me. Spoiler alert, it was a complete whirlwind of emotions, betrayal, and ultimately revenge. Let's start from the beginning. Lisa and I had been married for 7 years. We met in college, fell in love over late-night study sessions, and built a life together that I thought was solid. The early years were filled with laughter, adventures, and shared dreams. But as the years went on, things began to change. Lisa grew distant, and I felt like I was living with a stranger. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was just stress from work or the monotony of daily life, but deep down, I sensed there was something more. The signs were subtle at first. She'd come home late from work more often, claiming she was tied up with projects. I noticed her phone buzzing constantly, but whenever I tried to catch a glimpse, she'd always snatch it away, insisting it was just work-related texts. I thought I was being paranoid, but every time her phone lit up, a knot tightened in my stomach. Then came that fateful weekend when Lisa suggested we take a trip to our cabin in the woods, a place that had always been our cozy escape from the chaos of life. I thought maybe this was her way of rekindling our connection. Little did I know, she had other plans. We arrived at the cabin and it felt like stepping back in time. The place was filled with memories of happier times, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Lisa seemed preoccupied, lost in her thoughts. I tried to engage her in conversation, but she would often zone out, staring into space, lost in whatever world she was in. It was frustrating, but I pushed my feelings aside, hoping the weekend would help us reconnect. On the second day, I decided to take a long hike to clear my head. I needed to gain some perspective. I trekked through the snow-covered trails, the cold air biting at my cheeks and clearing my mind. When I returned to the cabin, I found it strangely quiet. Lisa had taken a shower and changed into a cozy sweater, but her demeanor was different. There was an air of anticipation. That's when I saw it. A text notification popped up on her phone, which lay unattended on the kitchen counter. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you tonight." My heart dropped. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. It was all I needed to see. I had to confront her. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart before I confronted her. As I walked into the living room, I felt a mix of anger and fear. I was about to unravel the whole beautiful lie we had built together. When I finally spoke, I could hear the tremor in my voice. "Lisa, who is Dave?" Her reaction was immediate. The color drained from her face, and for a moment she looked completely caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" She stammered, but I could already see the wheels turning in her mind. "Don't play games with me, Lisa. I saw the text." I shot back, trying not to raise my voice. The tension was thick, and I could feel the betrayal burning in my chest. She stood there, her expression shifting from shock to indignation. "Jake, it's not what you think. You're being ridiculous," she exclaimed, her voice rising defensively. I could see the lies forming, the excuses ready to spill out, but there was something about her that felt so far removed from the woman I had married. The confrontation was just the tip of the iceberg, setting off a chain of events that would change everything between us. Little did she know, I had already begun contemplating how I would handle this betrayal. The emotions swirling within me were chaotic, a mix of disbelief, anger, and a desperate need to reclaim my dignity. As the evening wore on, I could feel my resolve hardening. This wasn't just a moment of weakness on her part. It was a deliberate choice that shattered any hope I had of salvaging our marriage. I was done being the oblivious husband. Something drastic had to happen. But for now, I needed to gather my thoughts and come up with a plan, one that would serve as my form of revenge for the lies and deceit I had uncovered. This wasn't going to end well for her, I would make sure of that. This was just the beginning, and I was ready for what lay ahead. The night dragged on after that confrontation in the cabin, each minute feeling like an eternity. Lisa had attempted to explain herself, weaving a web of excuses that made my blood boil. "It was just a fling. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice trembling. "I was feeling neglected, and Dave just..." He paid attention to me. Those words hit me like a freight train. Here I was, pouring my heart and soul into the marriage, and she was off finding solace in the arms of another man. I couldn't help but wonder how long this had been going on. Had she been lying to me for weeks, months? The thought gnawed at my insides, leaving me feeling hollow. I got up from the couch, unable to sit there any longer. "You think that makes it okay?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "You think that because you felt neglected, it's acceptable too? Betray me, you're just going to throw away everything we built." She looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. "I never wanted to hurt you," she pleaded. "You have to understand how lonely I've felt. You're always at work and I just lost my way." Her words hung in the air and I could hear the desperation in her voice. But it was too late for that. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of betrayal, and the last thing I wanted was sympathy. I needed to focus on what came next. As the night deepened, I lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was Dave, the man who had invaded my life and stolen my wife's affection. I had to find out who he was. The thought of him touching her, whispering sweet nothings into her ear, made my blood boil. I grabbed my phone and started digging. I tried to act casual, scrolling through social media and searching for his name. It didn't take long before I uncovered his profile. Dave was a friend of hers from work, a coworker who had been in the picture longer than I had suspected. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe she was so brazen. It was like she was living a double life and I was the fool who had no clue. The more I learned about him, the more I understood the depths of her betrayal. He was charming with that boyish grin, and apparently he had a way with words. I could see why she had fallen for him, but that only fueled my anger. If she thought she could toss our marriage aside for some fling, she had another thing coming. The next day, I decided to put my plan into motion. I was going to show her that her actions had consequences. I didn't want to just confront her again, and I definitely didn't want to forgive her. No, I wanted her to feel what I was feeling, a mix of confusion, betrayal, and ultimately, regret. I started by gathering evidence. I took screenshots of the messages between Lisa and Dave. It was both validating and gut-wrenching to see the proof in front of me, the flirty texts, the plans they made to meet up, all while I had been obliviously caring for her. I couldn't believe the casual way they talked about being together, like it was just another day. I needed to prepare for the next confrontation. When she returned from work that evening, I was waiting for her at the cabin, everything set for the moment of truth. I didn't want to yell or scream. I wanted to be calm and collected, even if my insides were churning. When she walked in, her smile faded as soon as she saw my expression. "Jake, what's wrong?" she asked, her eyes darting to the phone in my hand. "Sit down," I said firmly, gesturing toward the couch. She hesitated but eventually complied, the tension in the air palpable. I took a deep breath, holding onto the screenshots. "I wanted to give you a chance to explain yourself, but it seems there's no need. I've seen everything." "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaking. I showed her the screenshots, watching as her face went pale. The color drained from her cheeks, and I could see the realization hit her. "Jake, please, it's not what it looks like." She stammered, but the excuses fell so hollow now. "Really, because it looks pretty clear to me," I said, my voice steady. "You were having an affair, Lisa. You were planning to meet him, and now you're trying to play the victim." The tears flowed freely now, and I didn't feel a single ounce of pity. I had to hold my ground. "Do you even care about what you've done?" I pressed. "Do you understand how much you've hurt me?" She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. I didn't want to hear any more lies. "I'm not interested in your excuses. You've made your choice, and now it's time for me to make mine." This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity and moving forward from the chaos she had brought into my life. I could feel the anger coursing through me, but alongside it was a growing resolve. As I looked at her, I knew I wouldn't be the one to walk away empty-handed. I had a plan, and I was going to execute it flawlessly. With that thought in mind, I couldn't help but feel a surge of empowerment. The game was on, and I was ready to play. As Lisa sat there, tears streaming down her face, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. It was a stark contrast to the tumultuous emotions that had plagued me just days before. I watched her crumble under the weight of her betrayals, and while a part of me wanted to feel pity for her, the other part reveled in the moment. This was a chance to reclaim my power, to take control of a situation that had spiraled out of my hands. "Jake, please," she said, her voice choked with sobs. "I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe me. I was confused. I thought—" I raised my hand to silence her. "You thought what? That it was okay to cheat on your husband, that I wouldn't find out." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "You made your bed, Lisa. Now you have to lie in it." The anger I felt was boiling beneath the surface, but I forced myself to stay composed. I had spent enough time feeling like the victim in this situation. It was time to turn the tables. "You need to understand the gravity of what you've done. This isn't just about you and your little fling. It's about the life we built together, the trust you shattered. You're not being fair," she snapped, her defensiveness rising as she wiped her tears away. "I made a mistake, but it doesn't change how I feel about you, doesn't it?" I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "You had no problem exploring a relationship with someone else while pretending everything was fine between us. You were lying to me, Lisa. You were lying to yourself." She opened her mouth, but I could see the realization settling in. Deep down, I knew she understood the truth, and the wall of denial she had built was crumbling right in front of me. Good. I wanted her to face the music. "Here's the deal," I continued, taking a step closer. "I'm done with the excuses and the blame game. You need to pack your things and leave. I want you out of this cabin, out of my life." Her face fell, and for a second I almost felt bad. But then I remembered the betrayal that had brought us here, the way she had made me feel like a fool, and my resolve strengthened. "You can stay with one of your friends until you figure things out. Just know this, I won't be waiting around for you to decide if you want to come back." "Jake, don't do this," she pleaded, her voice rising in panic. "We can work through this. I can fix it. Just give me a chance." I shook my head. "You had your chance, Lisa. If you wanted to fix things, you shouldn't have been running to another man. I'm not some backup option you can turn to when you want to feel good about yourself. I deserve better than that." She sat in silence, tears still streaming down her cheeks, but I could tell that her anger was simmering just beneath the surface. Good. I wanted her to feel every ounce of pain she had inflicted on me. "Fine," she finally muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll leave." I nodded, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over me. I didn't want to hear any more empty promises or excuses. I wanted the reality of this betrayal to set in for both of us. I wanted her to understand that her choices had consequences. As she gathered her things, I took a moment to reflect on how quickly my life had changed. Just days ago, I was still clinging to the hope that we could fix our marriage. Now I was standing in the ruins of it, ready to build something new from the ashes. After about an hour, Lisa had packed what she needed. She stood by the door, her expression a mix of defeat and anger. "I hope you're happy, Jake," she spat. "You've made your choice. I hope you can live with it." I looked at her, feeling surprisingly calm. I can finally breathe again." With that, I closed the door behind her, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. But I wasn't done yet. No, this was just the start of my plan. I needed to make sure that Lisa understood the impact of her actions, and I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. I had evidence of her infidelity, and I intended to use it, not just for my own peace of mind, but to expose her to everyone in her life who had supported her, believed in her, and stood by her while she chose to betray me. The thought of revenge had always felt wrong, but it was empowering in this moment. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but Lisa had made her bed, and it was time for her to lie in it. I didn't know how far I was willing to go, but I knew it would be calculated and impactful. The next day, I started reaching out to the people in her life, friends, family, anyone who had ever been close to her. I wanted to share my story to make sure that they understood the kind of person she really was. Lisa had chosen to betray my trust, and I would ensure that her actions didn't go unnoticed. With each message I sent, I felt a sense of liberation. I was taking back my narrative, and it felt good. I had once been the man wronged, but now I was the man reclaiming his life. And just like Lisa had chosen to betray me, I was choosing to expose the truth. The ripple effect of my actions began to unfold, and soon I started to receive responses from her friends. They were shocked and horrified, but I knew better than to expect sympathy. The overwhelming sense of betrayal they felt mirrored my own, and I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. Lisa had made her choice, and now she was going to face the consequences. I was ready for whatever came next. The aftermath of Lisa leaving the cabin was surreal. I was now alone, but the solitude felt strangely liberating. The weight of her betrayal was still heavy on my chest, but I could feel the shift in my mind. I had taken control of my narrative, and with each message I sent to her friends and family, I felt empowered. It was like a fog was lifting, and at that moment, I began to see a glimpse of the future I could reclaim. The messages I sent out weren't easy to craft. I wanted to be honest but not vindictive. I explained my side of the story, outlining her infidelity without embellishment. I shared the screenshots of the texts I had found, the proof that shattered our marriage. I didn't want anyone to think this was just a misunderstanding or a momentary lapse in judgment. Lisa had made a choice, and I wanted it to be known. Within a few days, the responses started flooding in, and they varied from shock to outrage. Some of her friends reached out to me directly, expressing their disbelief. Others were more skeptical, wanting Lisa's side of the story before jumping to conclusions. But I wasn't interested in playing the victim anymore. I just wanted the truth to come out. One afternoon, as I scrolled through my messages, I noticed a particularly heartfelt response from one of her close friends, Sarah. "I can't believe this, Jake. I've known Lisa for years, and this is so unlike her. Are you sure there's no misunderstanding?" I felt a pang of anger at the skepticism, but then I remembered how Lisa had always been good at playing the victim. "I wish there was a misunderstanding, Sarah, but it's all there in black and white. I wish you could see the screenshots to understand the full extent of her betrayal." Her response was swift. "I believe you. I just can't wrap my head around this. I'll talk to Lisa. She won't get away with this." That last line sent a shiver down my spine. I knew Sarah meant well, but I didn't want Lisa to escape the consequences. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the damage she had inflicted not just upon me, but on the relationships she had built with everyone around her. I spent the following days preparing myself for whatever fallout might come. I did a lot of reflecting during that time, trying to sift through my emotions. There was anger and sadness, of course, but also a sense of relief. I had finally taken a stand for myself, and that gave me a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in ages. However, I also began to worry about how this would affect me moving forward. Would I be known as the guy whose wife cheated on him? Or would I be the one who stood up for himself and took back control? It was a fine line, and I was determined to make my mark on this story. Then came the day I received a call from Lisa. I had been expecting it, but it still sent my heart racing. I let it ring a few times before answering, ensuring I was composed. "What do you want, Lisa?" I said, keeping my voice steady. "Jake, can we talk?" Her tone was shaky, and I could tell she was on the verge of tears. "About what? How you betrayed me, how you chose someone else over our marriage." I couldn't help but let my anger seep through. "Please, just let me explain," she pleaded. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I was in a dark place. I need you to understand." "Understand what?" "That you destroyed everything we built because you felt lonely, that you thought it was okay to play house with someone else." I barely recognized my own voice, filled with such bitterness. "Jake, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I want to make things right," she said, desperation spilling from her words. "I don't think you understand what you've done, Lisa," I replied coldly. "You don't get to just walk back in and act like everything will be fine. You made your choice, and now you need to live with it." There was a pause on the other end, and I could hear her trying to compose herself. "I'll do whatever it takes to regain your trust," she insisted, but her words felt empty to me. "Trust? You think I can trust you after everything? You've made a fool out of me, Lisa. I can't just pretend like none of this happened. I need time to figure out what I want." "Can we at least meet and talk in person?" she asked, her voice softer now. I hesitated. A part of me wanted to see her, to gauge her sincerity, but the other part, the one protecting my heart, warned me against it. "I'll think about it," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the conflicting emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand her perspective. But another part of me felt fiercely protective of myself and my heart. I couldn't allow her to manipulate me again. After our conversation, I reached out to Sarah again. I spoke to Lisa, I told her. She wants to meet, but I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I think you should meet her, Sarah replied, her tone firm. You deserve closure, and if she truly wants to apologize and make amends, you owe it to yourself to hear her out. Her words resonated with me. Closure was what I needed, and if Lisa was sincere, perhaps it would help me move forward. I agreed to meet her at a cafe halfway between our houses the next day. As I prepared for the meeting, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I didn't want to go in with anger, I wanted to understand. I wanted to hear her side, but I would also be ready to stand my ground. I owed it to myself to protect my heart and ensure I didn't fall into old traps. The next day, I arrived at the cafe early, sitting in a corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee. The atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken tension, and I tried to breathe through it. When Lisa walked in, my heart raced again. She looked different, vulnerable, and lost. As she approached, I steeled myself. I wasn't going to let her charm or tears sway me. I needed to stay focused on my own truth. Thanks for meeting me, she said quietly, sliding into the booth across from me. Let's just get this over with, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. And just like that, the conversation began, a tumultuous back and forth that would test my resolve and perhaps lead to the closure I so desperately needed. The moment Lisa sat down across from me, the air between us felt electric, charged with all the unresolved emotions from our past. I noticed how her hands fidgeted on the table, her fingers twisting nervously around her coffee cup. I couldn't help but wonder if she felt the weight of her choices hanging in the air, just as I did. Jake, I'm really glad we could meet, she began, her voice soft. I know this is hard for both of us. Hard for you, I replied, unable to keep the edge of my bitterness out of my tone. You don't get to claim the moral high ground here, Lisa. You're the one who cheated. She flinched at my words, and I could see the hurt flash across her face. I know I'm not trying to make excuses for what I did. I just want to explain why I did it. Go ahead, I said, bracing myself for whatever rationalization she had prepared. I'm all ears. Taking a deep breath, Lisa seemed to collect herself before speaking. I felt so alone, Jake. You were always working late, and I felt like I was just there. I wanted to be loved, to feel valued. I didn't think I was doing anything that would ruin everything. Didn't think. I shot back, unable to suppress the frustration bubbling up inside me. You didn't think it would ruin our marriage. You didn't think it was a huge betrayal. I didn't think it through, okay, she said, her voice rising. I was in a bad place. I was lonely, and it just happened. I never meant for it to go this far. So you just let it happen, I asked, incredulous. You didn't stop to think about what it would do to me, to us. You made a choice, Lisa. You made a conscious choice to go behind my back. She looked down, clearly struggling with the weight of her actions. I know I messed up, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry for hurting you. You didn't deserve this. My heart ached at her remorse, but I quickly reminded myself of the pain she had caused. Sorry doesn't fix anything, Lisa. You broke the trust we built. You shattered everything we had. I know, and I want to make it right, she insisted, leaning forward. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling if that's what it takes. I want to prove to you that I can change. It was tempting to hear her out. A part of me longed for the woman I had fallen in love with, the woman who had shared dreams and laughter with me, but another part warned me not to fall for the trap again. Why should I believe you? I countered, locking eyes with her. How do I know you won't just go right back to him if things get tough again? I promise I won't, she said earnestly. I can't change the past, but I can change the future. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just lost. You mean so much to me, and I want to fight for us. The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I wasn't ready to be swept back into her arms. Lisa, you can't just expect me to forgive and forget. This isn't something I can just let go. You need to understand the consequences of your actions. Then let me show you, she implored. Just give me a chance. I'll prove that I can be the wife you deserve. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the thought of her in Dave's arms, the intimacy they shared, was seared into my memory. This isn't just about me giving you a chance, it's about whether I can even trust you again. Trust takes time to build, and you've demolished it in record time. Lisa nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I get that, I really do, but I'm asking you to consider that I can change. I'm willing to put in the work to earn back your trust. I want to make this right. I took a moment to process her words, weighing my options. I wanted to feel hope, to envision a future where we could heal together, but the scars felt too fresh. I was not ready to let my guard down. I can't promise anything, I finally said. I don't know if I can trust you again. You've hurt me in a way I didn't think was possible. I need time to think about everything. This isn't something I can just decide on in one conversation. Just know that I'm here, Jake. I'm willing to fight for us, she said, her voice breaking. As we continued to talk, I found myself cycling through anger, sadness, and an unwanted longing for reconciliation. But even amidst the turmoil, I knew I had to be careful. Lisa's words were powerful, but they came from a place of guilt and desperation. I couldn't let that sway me too easily. Eventually, our conversation began to wind down. I could feel the tension between us slowly dissipating, though the weight of the situation still loomed large. I think it's best if we both take some time apart, I suggested. We both need to figure out what we want moving forward. I understand, she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. I just hope you'll consider giving me another chance someday. I nodded, feeling a pang of sorrow for what we had lost. I hope so too, Lisa, but right now I need to focus on healing. As I stood to leave, I felt an unexpected mix of sadness and relief. The conversation had been heavy, but it had also provided me with the clarity I needed. I was forging a new path for myself, one that didn't include the pain of her betrayal, and for the first time I felt a glimmer of hope for my future. Walking out of the cafe, I breathed in the crisp air, allowing the coolness to wash over me. It was a new beginning, one that was going to take work and reflection, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I knew I would emerge stronger from this ordeal. As I drove back to the cabin, I reflected on everything Lisa had said. While the door was not completely closed, it was ajar, and I had the choice of whether to walk through it again. But for now, I needed to focus on myself. I needed to heal, to reclaim my life, and to ensure that whatever the future held, it would be on my terms. The days that followed my conversation with Lisa were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. I had returned to the cabin, a place that felt both familiar and foreign. Every corner of this space was painted with memories of laughter and love, but now it served as a constant reminder of the betrayal that had shattered my world. I spent my time reflecting, rebuilding my sense of self, and figuring out what my next steps would be. I took long walks in the woods surrounding the cabin, using the solitude to process my feelings. Each step along the snow-covered trails was a step toward healing. I knew I had to focus on myself, on rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage. The betrayal had forced me to confront parts of myself I had ignored for too long, my passions, my dreams, and the relationships I had let slip away. I began to reconnect with friends I hadn't seen in a while. I reached out to my brother, Mark, who had always been a source of support. We went out for drinks and talked late into the night, sharing stories and laughter. He listened intently as I recounted the events that led to my breakup with Lisa. I felt lighter with each word, knowing I had someone in my corner who cared about me. As I spent more time with friends, I started to feel a sense of normalcy returning to my life. I joined a local hiking group, eager to rediscover my love for the great outdoors. The fresh air and camaraderie of fellow hikers helped me heal in ways I hadn't expected. I wasn't just moving on, I was moving forward. Then, about a month after our cafe meeting, I received a text from Lisa. My heart raced as I read her message. I'm sorry for everything I've put you through. I know I've lost your trust, but I want to show you I'm changing. Can we talk? I felt a mix of dread and curiosity. Was I ready to hear from her again after everything? I knew this was a pivotal moment, one that could either lead to reconciliation or further pain. After weighing my options, I decided to respond. Let's meet, I typed back, my heart pounding as I pressed send. I chose an outdoor cafe this time, a place that felt open and free. I wanted to ensure I was in a space where I felt comfortable, no longer trapped by the ghosts of our past. When the day arrived, I felt a rush of anxiety as I approached the cafe. I had spent the last month rediscovering my strength, and I didn't want to waver now. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that this was about me, my healing, and my choices. Lisa arrived a few minutes later looking uncertain yet hopeful. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, her expression one of tentative vulnerability. "Hey," she greeted me softly, a hint of shame in her voice. "Hey," I replied, gesturing for her to take a seat. I felt both apprehensive and curious about what she wanted to share. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last talked," she said, her eyes downcast. "I've been going to therapy and working on myself. I realize now how much I hurt you and how selfish I was. I don't expect you to forgive me or trust me right away, but I want to show you that I can change." I listened intently, searching for sincerity in her words. There was a raw honesty in her voice that caught me off guard. "What does change look like for you?" I asked, wanting to hear her vision. "I'm finally taking responsibility for my actions," she explained. "I've been reflecting on my decisions and the impact they had on our lives. I want to be a better person, not just for myself, but for the people I care about." I nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "It's a start," I said cautiously. "But trust isn't built overnight. It's a slow process, and I'm not sure I'm ready to jump back in." "I understand," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm not here to rush you. I just wanted you to know that I'm committed to making amends, even if it takes a long time." As we continued to talk, I found myself softening, but I remained guarded. I needed to be sure that she was genuinely committed to changing, and that I wasn't just hearing empty promises. I shared my own journey of healing, emphasizing how I had focused on rediscovering myself and rebuilding my life outside of our marriage. "I want you to be happy," she said earnestly. "And if that means we're not together, I'll accept that. I just want you to know I'm working on becoming a better person." As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a flicker of hope. While I wasn't ready to fully embrace the possibility of reconciliation, I realized that healing took many forms. I could acknowledge her progress while still prioritizing my own well-being. "Let's take this one step at a time," I said, feeling more confident in my resolve. "I appreciate your honesty, and I'll consider how I want to move forward." We left the cafe on a tentative but hopeful note. I knew there was still a long road ahead, both for myself and for Lisa. But for the first time in a while, I felt empowered to carve my own path, no matter where it led. As the weeks turned into months, I focused on myself, embracing the changes I wanted to see in my life. My hiking group became a source of camaraderie, and I even picked up a new hobby, photography. Capturing the beauty of nature reminded me of the joy that existed outside the pain of my past. Occasionally, I would hear from Lisa, each message a reminder of her journey towards self-improvement. I was still hesitant, but found myself allowing some distance to bridge between us. It became clear to me that the healing process would take time, and rebuilding trust would require patience and understanding from both sides. Ultimately, I learned that while the past shaped me, it did not define my future. I was reclaiming my narrative, learning to love myself again, and accepting that closure didn't always mean the end. Sometimes, it was just a new beginning. Whether that beginning involved Lisa or not remained to be seen, but I was finally ready to face whatever came next with an open heart and a stronger sense of self. In the end, I emerged from this experience not as a victim of betrayal, but as a survivor determined to embrace my own happiness, no matter what form it took. And that was the most empowering lesson of all.